What is going on, guys? RaidBoss here. Today we're going to be talking about another off-the-wall build. This time we're going to be talking about the Demon Hunter. And this is kind of a mix and match build, but it's a hell of a lot of fun. You do a crazy amount of damage, and it's all centered around the Marauders set. So if you don't have this set, please go out, grind, and get it. You will not regret it. I should be a rapper. Now, basically, when you have the Marauder set, if you have two pieces, it's going to call all of your companions for the Demon Hunter to your side, so that means that you're going to have a spider, a wolf, a boar, two ferrets, a bat, and a raven. Now, each one of them has a specific ability, and you will gain benefits from all of their abilities all at once if you activate them, which is really awesome in itself. And that's only for a two-piece. If you have the four-piece, your sentries deal 400% increased damage and cast Elemental Arrow, your Chakram, Impale, Multi-Shot, and Cluster Arrow whenever you do. So again, makes the whole set so much sweeter. And for the six-piece, your primary skills, Elemental Arrow, Chakram, Impale, Multi-Shot, Cluster Arrow, your companions, and Vengeance deal 800% increased damage for every sentry that you have out. Now, I only have about 598,000 damage here. I'm running an Unbound Bolt until I find something better, but I'm also running the Bombardier's Rucksack, which gives me 2 additional sentries, also mixed in with the custom engineering, so increase the maximum number of your charges of sentries to 3 and number of spike traps to 3. So altogether you can have 5 sentries. Now you do have to wait the extra cooldown to get the other 2, casting 3 normally, but you just wait a few seconds, give yourself some cooldown with a Perfect Royal Diamond in your helmet, and you will not regret it. Once you have all 5 sentries out, you do an insane amount of damage, and unfortunately it won't show here because it's considered bonus damage, part of the set, but you're going to do 800% increased damage for every single one of these turrets out, and when you have 5, you will kill everything. Now, switching things up a little bit, you can use whatever primary attack that you like, but I prefer to use Evasive Fire and Focus. Instead of backflipping, you increase your hatred generated to 7, and it also turns the damage to cold. There's a reason for this, and I will get into that in just a little bit. Second one, you want to run Elemental Arrow with Frost Arrow. You fire an arrow that hits an enemy for 300% weapon damage as cold, and then it splits into 10 additional frost arrows. So you can hit one target and have it spread into another 10, hitting 11 people at once with this. Enemies hit are chilled for 60% for 1 second. Now that may not seem like a lot, but again, there's also a reason for it. As for your number 1 ability, you can run this on any key you like, but I prefer to keep it on 1 because of the dramatic effect it has, and it's so easy to cast, and it's so much fun. Set it on Cluster Arrow under the archery skills, and you want to set it for the last rune called Loaded for Bear. Increase the damage of an explosion at the impact location to 850% of your weapon damage as fire. Now you can absolutely, this will fire out of every turret that you have active in addition, and take advantage of the full damage increase that you get from each one of them. So you can set these up anywhere you like. You can set up your turrets anywhere you like, and you can fire these, and these will fire from off-screen and absolutely just murder everything that you pointed at for an insane amount of damage. So it's a really, really cool effect, and you can fully just broadside people out of nowhere. Moving on, companions. I'm running the Wolf Companion, but because of the chestplate that I actually have all of the companions. But this one, when you activate your wolf howls, granting you and your allies within 60 yards 15% increased damage for 10 seconds. Now, the wolf will also act as a single unit, and the wolf, the boar, the spider, and the bat will all attack on their own and do damage. But when you activate this primary ability that I have on 2, you just increase your damage by 15% in addition to all of your allies that are around you within 60 yards. So it's an awesome team buff when you get into a rough fight. You can just increase everyone's damage just outright and just obliterate whatever you're fighting. Now the coup de grace of this set that makes everything come together is the sentries themselves. I used to run Polar Station for my sentries. That way it would synchronize with my passives that I'm going to get into in just a little bit here. but instead I've changed it up to piercing bolts. So when the idea behind the set is that you're going to be setting turrets as much as you possibly can, as often as you can, in order to keep all 5 out at all times. If any of them disappear and you're dropped down to 4, 3, or 2, God help you if you only have 1 out, you're going to be doing base damage, which is pretty disgustingly low, and you're probably going to get murdered. So the idea is you want to keep all 5 turrets out at all times, and with the Impaling Bolt rune, when they're all firing, you can hit massive groups of enemies instead of the bolt hitting one person only. This will keep passing through enemies and repeating that same damage, so you can clear big crowds very, very quickly. So that's going to clear up for devices. As for the last one, I have my skill set on elective, so I'm also going to be under devices and just run Vengeance with Seethe. And what's that going to do is gain you 10 hatred per second while you have Vengeance active. I used to run side cannons and From the Shadows, and From the Shadows actually works extremely well because now it changes the damage to cold, and it has a possibility to freeze your enemies for 3 seconds, which works extremely well with Coal the Weak. This is where the Frost Arrow, the Evasive Fire, and where I used to run my sentries from would come in handy. Coal the Weak is a passive that I like to run because of the prevalence of ice in my build. This increases your damage against slowed or chilled enemies by 20%, so automatically anybody you hit with that Frost Arrow, it's going to split and hit 10 targets around them. So all 10 of those targets will take an extra 20% damage on top of everything else that you have going. Other passives are going to be Ambush. You deal 40% extra damage to enemies above 75% health. So this will help you whittle enemies down, and it's basically just plain and simple, it's another buff to add to your damage to whittle people down as fast as fucking possible. Next, we're going to hit Archery. Now I'm using a bow, so this also gives me 8% increased damage, but no matter what you're using, whether it be hand crossbows, a single hand crossbow, a two-handed crossbow, or a bow, you're going to get massive buffs from this, and it is absolutely awesome. There's no restriction on range or how many enemies are in the area like some other skills. This just gives you a flat 8% increase for bows, 50% critical hit damage for crossbows, which is awesome. If you have a hand crossbow, it gives you a 5% critical hit chance, not too great, but if you have a second hand crossbow, it gives you 1 hatred per second, which is really cool, especially if you're running something like Elemental Arrow, Rapid Fire, or using Chakram. Now, the last one is Custom Engineering. Increases the duration of your Caltrops, Marked for Death, Spike Trap, and Sentry by 100%. So this will keep your sentries out for 100% longer and increases the maximum number of charges of sentries to 3. Now, I touched base a little bit with this one earlier, but with Custom Engineering and your Marauder set, it will actually keep your sentries out for an incredibly long time so they can do their work. Now, I'm going to open up a rift and we're going to jump right into it. I'm running on Torment 5. I've used this build all the way up until about Torment 12 so far, but normally I'll run it on Torment 10, just like my wizard. But the idea is, basically you want to keep your turrets out, even if they're not exactly in a prime location. You yourself and your pets will increase in damage just from having them out. And just like that. That's only 3 turrets, 4 turrets. And I'm just going to run around here and just show you what exactly the turrets can do without me intervening at all. They just take care of business, and along with all of your pets, you barely have to do anything. Now this is only on Torment 5, and I'm just kind of showing off the build for what it is. But even on a higher difficulty, this build will still absolutely wreck people. But you have to remember to lay down more turrets. If you don't lay down more turrets, you will lose your damage very quickly, and you'll put yourself into a really, really awful situation. I'm also running... Let me get to a safe area real quick. I'm also running a Witching Hour for my belt, so I do extra damage to elites. or excuse me, critical hit damage increased by 41%, and I believe it's on my kunai cube. I have the ballistics passive on my amulet, my hellfire amulet. I'll have to go back to town after this rift is over and show you guys what I have in my kunai cube. And sometimes, even if your sentries aren't in the best spot, just throw them down, because right now I only have 4 out, now I have 5. They may not always be in the perfect spot to hit an enemy, but it's worth it just to have the extra damage always there for you, in case you need it. Now, this set is incredibly good against taking down elite mobs, as long as you keep your turrets out, like I said. And you want to chill your enemies as much as possible. That way you get the full damage increase from all of your abilities. Now, if I remember correctly, on the kunai cube, I can't remember the name of the item, but basically if I don't kill somebody with a single shot, it marks everybody I hit marked for death. So I also get a free mark for death, so it's like I have, what, a 7th skill? 7th or 8th skill? And that also increases the damage of everything I'm doing significantly. And if you ever get into a situation that's really, really bad with this build, and you just can't seem to do enough damage for some reason, you can also activate your Vengeance, and then just absolutely obliterate everything. This is a very extremely fun class to run. Like I said earlier, you can run it on higher difficulties, but it's actually not in the meta right now for this season, unfortunately. So a lot of people are not running this. The Marauder set was a big thing in Season 6, but ever since, it's just kind of, the meta's just kind of moved on a little bit. And I still like to run it because I still think it's a lot of fun. And you can still do a hell of a lot of damage with it, but the thing that's lacking is mobility. You don't have the mobility that I would like. You obviously don't have like smokescreen or vault to get you out of a bad situation. So just like the wizard build that I just did in a previous video, you can't really let enemies get very close to you, because if you do, the squishiness of your base character will just take over and you'll be pretty screwed. As you can see, I'm just going to run this rift here until we fight the Rift Guardian. I can show you exactly how fast you can obliterate them even on T5. And then I'll probably end up doing a video later on a higher difficulty, probably running some greater rifts solo, and then I'll do some together with some randoms.
No, I will not do that.
Here's an example of testing all of the abilities all at once. Have Vengeance activated, activate your companions, and then have your broadsides. Something to remember is whenever you're playing through rifts like this, every single time you pass into a new level from a rift, it actually gets rid of all of your turrets. Obviously it's not going to carry them around, but you have to remember, typically when you end a rift, especially on the higher difficulties where it's super necessary, you want to remember to have at least 2 to 3 of them on cooldown already, so as soon as you enter the rift you can activate them and get your damage boost back, because you depend on them being out. And when you join a new level, since they disappear, you will be reverted down to like 800,000 damage, or maybe a little bit higher, and it will actually ruin your day. Like it would get pretty rough. So basically every time you go through a rift, you just want to make sure that you have a few on your bar, just in case you run into some baddies. You all have those rifts where you walk through and there's like 2 or 3 elite packs just waiting for you as you come through, and that's never a fun situation. So despite being squishy, not being able to take a lot of damage, sometimes if you're running into a vortex like I just did, and you get pulled into a bad situation you're not exactly ready for, that's where the Frost Arrow and the turrets really come in handy, because they can... I can't guarantee that it's going to get you out of a sticky situation, but you can definitely start eliminating threats very quickly. so it won't be something you have to worry about for very long. You should definitely still try to get onto the other side of the fight and maybe kite a little bit, because I can't guarantee your safety and security here. But here's an example of the Rift Guardian. I'm going to activate all the abilities, and gone. Just instantaneous. Whenever you fire your cluster shot, it'll fire yourself, it'll just fire that little explosion. But if you have somebody targeted, it will fire from every single one of your turrets all at one time, and it is actually a pretty hilarious event when you see it happening like that. Just everything just dies.
That would not be wise.
So we're actually going to run up against this goblin here, little gem hoarder. And you can also make quick work of bosses, goblins, Rift Guardians, Uber bosses. I've tested this out with almost everything, and it's pretty consistent all the way around, despite the fact that you're squishy. I'd probably say that's the only true downside to this build. But I'm going to head back to town in just a second here, and I'll go over the Kunai Cube abilities, and then any special items I've got running on the set here. Alright, taking a look at the Kunai Cube. I'm running Calamity. Automatically cast Mark for Death when you damage an enemy. So if you don't finish something off in a single hit, this will automatically cast Mark for Death on them as many times as it takes. If there's a huge group of enemies and I'm using an ability like Evasive Fire where it has 3 prongs, it'll actually activate it on all 3 targets if it doesn't kill them at once, and the Mark for Death will help you immediately, instantaneously destroy them. Now, just like the Wizard, I'm also running Countess Julia's Cameo, so it prevents all arcane damage and heal yourself when you take it. And I'm also using the same for Pride's Fall. Your resource costs are reduced by 30% after not taking damage. So if you can avoid damage for 5 seconds, all of your resource costs when you start casting like your Ice Shot, let me see, Elemental Arrow, will actually be reduced. And just like the Wizard, you can double cast your abilities if you want to use a little bit of extra hatred. And you don't really have to worry about Discipline because there's nothing in this set that uses Discipline at all. So unfortunately you're not really utilizing the full ability of the Demon Hunter, but you're still incredibly strong and a very, very, very strong competitor. So that's going to wrap it up for this video, guys. Thank you for watching. I'll see you later.